Welcome on to the next edition of Run with Coach Parry. I'm Brad Brown, and we've got the coach with us once again, Lindsey Parry. Lindsey, how's it?
Yeah, very good, thanks, Brad. Haven't chatted for a week.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsey, such a great question today, and it's got to do with sort of feedback on training sessions and the best way to monitor things, and whether you should be doing it on a session-by-session basis or on a sort of overall cycle basis. But we'll chat about that in just a second. Don't forget as well to check out the Biogen Journey hashtag. Let us know what you're training for, and you could win access to the Coach Parry online training platform. We're following James Hobson's journey to Ironman 70.3, and we'd love to help you just as we're helping Hobos. So make sure you tell us what you're training for. The hashtag is hashtag Biogen Journey, and we will pick it up on the social media. Lindsey, the question was in our forums, and I think it is such a great one to talk about, and it's about sort of tracking what you're doing and following what you're doing, and should you be analysing the living daylights out of every single session that you're doing? And what constitutes a successful training session? Is it how you feel or perception of how it went? Or is it about the numbers? In your opinion, what's the best way to sort of, what's the sort of metric of success on a training session?
So, Brad, the answer to that question is both. And I know that's not what people always want to hear. They want to know some slightly more black and white answers. But it's really good to look through all your sessions and understand what your body's doing and how it's feeling. But the reason I say both is because you don't want to get too caught up in one individual session. And what we're rather doing is looking at patterns over 2 or 3 sessions that start to paint us a picture of whether we're going in the right direction or the wrong direction, mostly around things like fatigue. So, we'd use obviously an RPE, so how did I feel in those sessions? So that would be one of the most important metrics, but taking into account how I feel versus what speed did I run over the profile, and have I run that profile before? What does my heart rate look like? What does it look like compared to previous sessions on the same day, and with reasonably similar conditions? And even then, if it's exactly the same route with exactly the same conditions, there is going to be a little bit of variation. So don't get too excited if you feel like you improved, and don't get too disappointed if you feel like you went the other way because a cup of coffee or a fight with a colleague or pressure at work, these are all things that can play into the mix. So we want to know how we're responding, and we want to look at that against the backdrop of our overall training program, and that is to say that it would be taking into account at least the previous month, if not longer, training, because that will establish a baseline for what does my heart rate look like on easy runs. So when I go back and I look, even though I may have felt like I ran easy, that heart rate looks a little bit high compared to normal. Okay, does that carry on for a second day in a row? Maybe there's a problem and I need to have a look at that and adjust. Or even worse, I can't get my heart rate up. So when I'm doing very high intensity sessions, doing interval type of work, and no matter how hard I push myself, I can't get my heart rate up. It's staying very, very low, and it's unresponsive. Or if it does go up, it's taking much longer than normal to go up. And those are sort of warning signs that we look for, that we're overreaching and overtraining. So for me, the stunted heart rate is much more of a warning sign. And people will then ask me, okay, well, what's the difference in my heart rate getting better and better and better, because then it's getting lower? Is that a problem? No, it's probably good. When it'll become a problem is if you've got that, or let me say when it's not a problem, is that when you've got that happening and your heart rate is lowering, resting heart rate's coming down, you're running at lower heart rate at easier runs than you normally do, but when you push hard, you get an immediate response from your heart rate. And by running hard, you can get that heart rate up. If you find that on easy runs, everything is low, 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 and when you try to do hard runs, it's still not responding and going up, that's when you can see, whoa, warning signs, got to do something about it. Maybe I need some extra recovery, or at least to check things out and make sure I'm okay.
Yeah, Lindsey, the flip side of that coin too is, somebody could be looking at the numbers and they could be going, gee, my numbers look amazing, but I'm absolutely hating every single run. It's just not feeling right. How big a role does perception and feeling play in this thing?
Look, the biggest role, and I think maybe part of the point of this question, which I didn't answer at all, is to say that the best gift you can give yourself as a runner is to know how to listen to your body and to learn to run on exactly how I'm feeling now. Because when you get into a race situation, that's the sort of intuition that's going to lead you to be able to execute a race perfectly. There's only so much that a coach or an external person can tell you to say, you should be running a 3.5 hour marathon. So you line up on the day, and for the first 10 Ks, you blindly follow that 4:30 per K, and you get to 15, 20, 25 Ks, and you're like, I'm shattered. And it's because you couldn't recognize in those first 5 Ks, although from all the calculations, it's likely that you could and should be able to do a 3:30. Maybe 3:40 was the right number, and being unable to feel that from the beginning is what then leads to a disaster in the second half. So absolutely, you do want to be able to learn to run on feel, and you don't want every single session to be ruled by a stopwatch or a heart rate or a training speed or a power. And I have quite a few runners that don't look at all during, but then still look for analysis purposes afterwards to get an idea of where they were or weren't. But what they're doing by not looking at all during the race is they're really teaching themselves to run better off intuition.
Yeah, Lindsey, you mentioned the not ignoring individual sessions, but seeing how they fit into cycles and over a few days if there were some warning signs. That's one thing you do need to be careful of when you're digging into this data is digging too deep in individual sessions and then making assumptions about your training long term, or not digging in deep enough over a 3 or 4 day cycle if there is something that does pop up, because you don't want to leave it for a month or 2 months before you make adjustments, because then it's too late. You can't get that time back. So you've got to find that balance, don't you?
Yeah, and I definitely leaving a month before making adjustments, that would be too long. And certainly in cases where you're going into overreaching, that would be catastrophic. I mean, I think you wouldn't be able to. You'd eventually get so tired that you'd essentially be in a position where you'd be forced to do something better. Having said that, if you're training on the other end, which is too easy and not pushing yourself enough, perhaps you don't want to wait a month to make those changes either, because as you say, you weren't caught up last time. But in my experience, that error is actually quite forgiving, because it really creates a powerful aerobic system. And so being slightly under is going to beat being slightly over every day, every time.
Well, brilliant. If you do need help with your training, make sure you check out the Coach Parry online training platform. You can get access to every single one of our training programs, from 5K right through to ultra marathons. There are over 60 training programs in there at the moment. There's strength and conditioning as well, so definitely check that out. And it's all available through our very easy to use iOS and Android app as well. You'll absolutely love it. So go check that out. CoachParry.com/join. And as I mentioned at the top of this video as well, be sure to share your Biogen journey with us. Use that hashtag on social media, and we could be making you a winner and giving you access to the Coach Parry online training platform. If you'd like to follow Hobbo's journey and some of the other cool things that we've got going on, make sure you listen to our audio podcast as well. You can get access to it through iTunes or any other podcast player, and you can find out if you are a winner if you use that hashtag on that audio podcast as well. Until next time, from myself, Brad, and the coach, it's cheers.